Robert thought he was choosing the safer pension. 6 months later, he discovered he'd accidentally erased nearly 20 years of financial security. The paperwork looked ordinary. One small checkbox, one signature, one decision that no one told him he could never take back. If you're planning to retire, or you already have, this story may be more important than any investment advice you'll ever hear, because sometimes retirement doesn't collapse because of the stock market. Sometimes it collapses because you trusted the form sitting in front of you, and Robert wasn't the only one. Spring 2026. Cleveland, Ohio. Robert Miller was 66. He'd worked for the same utility company for 38 years. Never chased risky investments, never bought expensive cars, never gambled. His friends called him the careful one. His wife, Linda, used to joke that Robert read instruction manuals for fun. She wasn't entirely wrong. Everything about his life followed a plan, until retirement. The envelope arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Inside was the decision he'd been waiting years to make. What Robert didn't know was that someone else had already influenced that decision long before he ever opened the envelope. Robert and Linda had imagined retirement for decades. Morning walks, grandchildren every weekend, maybe finally buying the little camper they'd always talked about. Nothing extravagant, just peace. Their daughter, Emily, kept telling them,
"You two finally get to enjoy life."
Their son, Jason, even offered to help with the paperwork. Everyone assumed retirement was simple. Work ends, checks begin, life continues. But pension elections aren't simple. Some choices increase monthly income. Others protect a surviving spouse. Some can't ever be reversed. Robert didn't know that because no one had ever explained the emotional cost behind the numbers, only the math, and math can hide dangerous stories. A week later, Robert met with a retirement representative, Mark Reynolds. Friendly, professional, confident. The meeting lasted less than 45 minutes, page after page, numbers, options, benefit calculations. Mark smiled.
If maximizing your monthly income is your priority, this option usually makes the most sense.
Usually. One word. Robert heard opportunity. He didn't hear risk. Linda wasn't there. She stayed home because she thought it was routine paperwork. Robert signed, initialed, checked one box, and walked out believing everything was settled. He even stopped for coffee on the drive home. He felt lighter than he had in years. He had no idea the decision had quietly changed Linda's future too. Retirement was beautiful. Breakfast together, fishing trips, family dinners. Robert looked healthier than he'd looked in years. Emily noticed.
"Dad, you seem younger."
He laughed.
I finally sleep.
Bills were paid. Savings stayed untouched. Everything looked perfect. Until one October evening, Robert felt a crushing pain in his chest. Linda called 911. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Doctors tried. Hours passed. And then silence. Linda went home alone, heartbroken, still believing at least the pension would help her survive. She had no reason to think otherwise. Not yet. 3 weeks later, another envelope arrived. Linda expected instructions about continuing benefits. Instead, she found a short letter. According to Robert's retirement election, monthly pension payments had ended permanently upon his death. She read it once, twice, 3 times. Surely there had been a mistake. Emily read it. Jason read it. No one understood. Robert had unknowingly selected a single life payout, the highest monthly check, but no survivor protection. The decision could never be changed after retirement began. Linda whispered, he never would have done this if he'd understood. The room went completely quiet. Emily requested meeting notes. Jason searched old emails. Linda found Robert's retirement folder. Everything was organized. Every receipt, every statement, every warranty, except one thing. There wasn't a single handwritten note explaining why he'd chosen that option. Emily couldn't stop asking herself, did someone actually explain what this meant? Or did everyone simply assume he understood? The more they searched, the more painful the answer became. Nothing illegal had happened. No fraud, no forged signature, just a decision made without fully understanding the consequences. Sometimes that's all it takes. Linda met with an independent retirement counselor, not to change the past, just to understand it. The counselor quietly placed two benefit charts side by side. One showed the option Robert chose, the other, the survivor option. The difference in monthly income wasn't enormous, just enough that Robert probably thought he was making the responsible financial choice. No one can know exactly why he decided as he did, but Linda couldn't stop imagining the conversation they never had.
If something happens to me, will you be okay?
That question never got answered, and now it never could. Months passed. Linda adjusted, downsized the house, sold the camper they never bought. Emily began helping friends review retirement paperwork. Jason admitted something difficult.
I always thought pension forms were just paperwork. They're not. They're life decisions.
The family stopped blaming Robert, because blame changes nothing. Understanding changes everything. Sometimes the greatest financial mistake isn't being careless. It's believing you understood something important when you didn't. Tonight, thousands of families are preparing for retirement. Some are opening pension packets. Some are delaying difficult conversations. Some assume they'll figure it out later. Robert's story reminds us, later doesn't always arrive. Financial safety isn't built only by saving money. Sometimes it's built by asking one more question, reading one more page, inviting your spouse into one more meeting. Not because you're expecting tragedy, because you're protecting each other from uncertainty. That small habit can outlive you. Linda still keeps Robert's reading glasses beside his favorite chair. Not because she expects him to come back, because they remind her how ordinary life felt before everything changed. She often tells friends,
"Don't assume the paperwork says what you think it says. Read it together. Ask again, then ask one more time."
no retirement plan is perfect. No family can prevent every hardship. But some regrets can be avoided with a single conversation before a signature. If Robert's story reminds you of someone you love, share it with them, not to frighten them, to protect them. Because sometimes the most expensive mistake in retirement doesn't begin with losing money. It begins with believing everything is already taken care of.